Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the Cambridge AS Level Afrikaans 8679 syllabus. But we're not just doing a broad overview. No. We are laser focusing on paper 011, the General Conversation module. And more specifically, we are zeroing in on the absolutely critical skill of seeking information and opinions from the examiner. Listen, I've spent a lot of time poring over recent principal examiner reports, and they are incredibly revealing. They show us exactly, and I mean exactly, what separates a standard, middle-of-the-road grade from a truly elite performance. Honestly, it's a tightrope walk. You're balancing linguistic proficiency with critical thinking, all while maintaining real-time analytical agility under intense pressure. A lot of students stroll into this exam room thinking it's just a casual chat in Afrikaans, like they're just catching up over coffee. Let me stop you right there. It is not. It is a highly structured, cognitively demanding assessment. It's a game with very specific rules, and today we are going to completely deconstruct the blueprint that Cambridge examiners are actually using to grade you. So let's dive right into the fundamental divide between an average performance and an A-star performance. You have your B-grade approach, which is what I like to call the transactional trap. These candidates treat the general conversation as a simple, straightforward Q&A session. The examiner gives a prompt, the candidate mentally translates it, and then they spit out a purely factual response. Sure, they might use some decent vocabulary, but when it's their turn to ask the examiner a question, it's totally superficial. They'll ask things like, well, what do you think? Or, do you agree with me? It's completely transactional. An A-star candidate, they don't just answer the question, they critically analyze the entire premise. They have mastered specific conversational components, and they seamlessly link the immediate topic to much broader cross-topic connections. For example, if the prompt is about modern technology, they don't just talk about smartphones. They bridge that to traditional Afrikaans cultural norms, they analyze the friction between the two, and then, here's the kicker, they seek the examiner's opinion with a highly targeted, conceptually rich question. They evaluate causal relationships instead of just listing facts. That is how you dominate this module. To get you operating at that A-star level, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look through the examiner's lens. Then, we'll get into the deconstruction debate. After that, we'll tackle common roadblocks and breakthroughs, run through a pause and practice exercise, and finally, bring it all together with a strategy recap. Let's get into it. Section 1. The examiner's lens. Now, the theoretical architecture of the General Conversation module isn't just some arbitrary set of guidelines. It rests heavily on precise definitions, causal relationships, and deep integration with other areas of your syllabus. When you are speaking, the examiner is actively tracking your cognitive framework. You have to think of your brain as needing to operate in 3 distinct domains all at the exact same time. Let's break them down. Slice 1 is AO1, knowledge and understanding. This is your foundation, your vocabulary, your grammatical accuracy, your basic comprehension of the topic. Slice 2 is AO2, analysis. This is where you step it up. You extract data from the stimulus, you interpret relationships, and you actively deconstruct arguments on the fly. And then we have Slice 3. This is the absolute critical piece for top marks. AO3, evaluation. This demands that you evaluate alternatives, compare different approaches, and make heavily justified recommendations. Think about it. If you were sitting there only showing knowledge and understanding, you are literally leaving 2/3 of your potential marks on the table. You have to push into analysis and evaluation to hit those top bands. To actually push your brain into those higher cognitive domains, you absolutely must understand the anatomy of Cambridge command words. This is where high tariff questions, those massive 9 to 15 mark questions, are won or lost. Consider a complex sample question like this. To what extent does the integration of digital media in South African schools erode traditional Afrikaans dialects? Analyze the stimulus data and evaluate potential interventions. Okay, let's pull this apart microscopically. First, we have to what extent. This is not a simple yes or no. It requires a sliding scale of judgment. You have to argue the nuance. Then we have analyze the stimulus data. This means you need to dissect the provided text or chart, pulling out the exact relationships between the variables. And finally, evaluate potential interventions. This right here is the hidden constraint. You cannot just rattle off a list of possible solutions. That's just explaining. Evaluating means you must weigh those solutions against real-world constraints like financial cost, cultural resistance, or time. So when it's your turn to seek the examiner's opinion, your question has to reflect this deep level of evaluation. Instead of a basic, do you like digital media, an A-star interaction sounds more like, given the friction between digital homogenization and dialect preservation, do you believe policy interventions are actually viable? See the difference? One is a basic query. The other is a high-level academic challenge. Section 2, the deconstruction debate.
Let's step into our digital study suite for a moment. I want you to imagine two of our top scholars, let's call them Alex and Sam, working collaboratively on that exact high tariff question we just looked at. They know that to crack this, they have to run it through a very specific 6-step procedural framework before they even open their mouths to speak. Step 1 is deconstruct the question. Step 2 is extract the data from the text or table. Step 3 is select an analytical framework to view that data through. Step 4 is execute the argument with clear mental notation. Step 5 is verify the results against the prompt. And step 6 is present it with the correct academic terminology. Now, knowing this sequence is one thing, but knowing how to apply it under pressure to unlock the highest marking bands is exactly where candidates, even smart ones like Alex and Sam, start to diverge in debate.
So, as Alex and Sam are working through the prompt, they hit a massive central tension. It's the classic struggle, relying on purely factual extraction versus taking a risk on conceptual evaluation. Alex, who is highly technical and loves hard facts, says, "Look, it's simple. The text says 78% of youths consume media in English. I'm just going to extract that, state it to the examiner, and show I understood the text. Boom, factual approach, I get the marks." But Sam, who is a much more creative, conceptual thinker, immediately pushes back. Sam argues, "No way, Alex. Stating the 78% only proves basic AO1 knowledge. It's completely lacking the conceptual link to cultural identity that we need for top marks." And Sam is right. The syllabus explicitly states that top-performing students must exhibit connected, conceptual understanding that can be transferred to unfamiliar contexts. Sam explains, "We have to state the fact, analyze its impact on community cohesion, and then challenge the examiner. We should ask how they weigh that statistical dominance against the cultural resilience of the language." This debate perfectly illustrates the tug-of-war you will feel in the exam room. Do you stay safe with empirical facts, or do you take the leap into high-level conceptual evaluation? You have to take the leap.
Section 3. Roadblocks and Breakthroughs. Okay, before we resolve Alex and Sam's debate and get into the ultimate cognitive breakthrough, I need to pause the session for a quick second. If you are serious about crushing your Cambridge exams and you want to master these high-level strategies, you need to subscribe to our channel, Ace the Exams IGCSE O and A Levels, at the handle @acetheexam_IGCSE. Hit that subscribe button and, crucially, turn on all notifications. We drop weekly Cambridge breakthrough strategies just like this one, and you do not want to miss a single hack. All right, back to the study suite. When candidates like Alex and Sam get stuck trying to balance factual evidence with a sprawling conceptual argument, anxiety absolutely spikes. Alex points out that a purely factual list feels disjointed, leaving no room for a natural, high-level question to the examiner. But Sam realizes that a massive conceptual argument can take way too long to explain. The paragraph linking falls apart, timing is completely thrown off, and suddenly you're rambling. This is the exact moment where you need a cognitive circuit breaker. Which leads our scholars to a totally paralyzing question. What if you formulate this brilliant conceptual argument, but your final conclusion, or the premise of the question you ask the examiner, is technically flawed or highly debatable? What if the examiner completely disagrees with you? The natural instinct for almost every student is to immediately retreat back to the safety of basic facts just to avoid losing marks. But there is a deeply powerful exam strategy that completely changes how you should approach the fear of being wrong. I want you to listen to this exact quote taken directly from the examiner alerts. It says, "Students lose marks by not showing working. Even if your final answer is wrong, method marks can save you." Now you might be thinking, method marks in a language conversation? Absolutely. In a language exam, you show you're working by verbalizing your systematic analytical process out loud, right before you seek the examiner's opinion. You don't just jump to the question. You say something like, based on the 78% statistic in the text, one might assume traditional dialects are failing. However, when contrasted with the recent rise in localized Afrikaans music festivals, it suggests a much more complex reality. Therefore, my question to you is, do you see what just happened? By demonstrating the extraction, the comparison, and the evaluation out loud, you secure those method marks regardless of the examiner's personal opinion on the matter. You've literally shown the mathematical working of your linguistic logic. It's a total game changer. To make sure you can replicate this method under extreme exam pressure, we need to codify it into what we call the critical analysis framework. The higher order assessment objectives demand that your speech moves through 3 very specific levels in order. Level 1 is the descriptive level. This is where you say, the text states X. You're laying the groundwork.
Level 2 is the analytical level. This is the bridge. You say, this means Y, and it connects to Z. You must use comparative connectives here to show relationships. Finally, level 3 is the evaluative level. You conclude with, therefore, the most significant factor is A, which leads me to ask you B. If you panic and jump straight from the descriptive level to the evaluative level without building that analytical bridge in the middle, you haven't shown your working. And if you don't show your working, you lose those vital method marks.
Section 4. Pause and practice.
All right, it's time for an immersive workshop. I want you to put a 60-second timer on the clock in your mind. Consider a scenario where you are presented with a complex data table showing youth employment rates across different South African provinces, specifically broken down by the primary language spoken. Your task is to extract that data, interpret the hidden relationships, and formulate a high-level question for the examiner. Time starts now. Let's say you notice a province with a very high Afrikaans-speaking youth demographic. You look closer and see they have a wildly varied employment rate in the tech sector, compared to a very stable rate in agriculture. A basic, descriptive response would just note, oh, there's high unemployment in tech. But an evaluative, A-star response extracts that specific sector disparity and formulates a question like this. Given the data showing a distinct migration from agricultural stability to tech sector volatility among Afrikaans speakers, do you believe the education system needs a fundamental paradigm shift, or is this merely a temporary economic anomaly? That is how you dominate the stimulus material.
Let's try another one. Spot the flaw. I'm going to read you a poorly written student answer based on a prompt asking to compare two texts on environmental conservation. Listen closely. The student says, Text A talks about saving water. Text B talks about solar power. I think saving water is more important because we have droughts. What do you think? Okay, time's up. Did you catch the errors? Based on comparative analysis requirements, there are 3 massive, glaring flaws here. First, it completely misses any nuanced similarities or differences. It's just stating isolated facts like a bulleted list. Second, there are absolutely no comparative connectives used. Words like whereas, conversely, or furthermore are totally absent. Third, the conclusion, I think saving water is more important, is an unjustified generic assumption. It is not rigorously rooted in evidence extracted from the text. It's just a random opinion.
That flawed answer perfectly illustrates the top 3 mistakes highlighted in the principal examiner reports year after year. Let's go through them. Number 1. Formatting errors. Students forget the formal conventions of the exam. They slip into informal slang or casual phrasing rather than maintaining the polite, formal academic tone that is strictly required. Number 2, presentation checks. Under pressure, candidates freeze up and forget to self-correct. Listen, examiners actually love a good self-correction. If you make a tense error while speaking, just briefly correct yourself and move right on. It shows real-time evaluation. And number 3, the absolute biggest one. Lacking context. If the stimulus text is about a specific rural town's economy, your generalizations cannot suddenly be about the entire global macroeconomy without you explicitly building a logical bridge between the two. Your entire conversation, and especially the questions you ask the examiner, must be firmly rooted in the provided evidence. I know this is a lot to process, and when exam anxiety hits, your working memory can totally shut down. To remember all of this under pressure, creating a personal mnemonic using the first letters of our 6-step procedural framework is an incredible memory hack. Remember the steps? Deconstruct, extract, select, execute, verify, present. DESEVP. You could use something like, don't ever skip evaluating valid points. It's a simple, catchy phrase that instantly anchors your brain back to the analytical process. When the panic starts to rise in your chest, falling back on a memorized, structured framework like this is your absolute best defense. It keeps you moving forward.
Section 5, Strategy Recap. All right, let's synthesize everything we've unpacked today into 3 core memorable pillars you can take directly into the exam room. Pillar 1 is your 3-step question scan. The second you get the prompt, isolate the command word, identify the exact content knowledge required, and hunt down any hidden constraints. Pillar 2 is the paragraph balance formula. When you speak, ensure you systematically move from the descriptive fact across the analytical bridge and land on the evaluative conclusion. You have to show you're working out loud to get those method marks. Pillar 3 is the last 5 minutes checklist. This is your mental verification right before you finalize your interaction. Ask yourself, did I use comparative connectives? Am I maintaining the correct formal tone? And most importantly, is the question I'm about to ask the examiner genuinely seeking an opinion based on hard evidence? Or am I just asking a superficial question?
Before we wrap this up entirely, I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative question. I want you to really think about this, because it is the most critical examiner warning of all. Are your generalizations firmly rooted in specific context? Seriously, ask yourself that. Because if you make a sweeping, grandiose claim about society or culture or language evolution, you absolutely must be able to point directly at a piece of stimulus data or a rigorously analyzed cross-topic connection to prove it. If you can't point to the evidence, it is merely speculation. And let me be clear, speculation does not and will not earn top marks in Cambridge assessments.
Crushing these A-level assessments does not happen by accident. You don't just wake up and ace a Cambridge exam. It requires a clinical, highly consistent strategy and an absolute mastery of the analytical frameworks we have deconstructed today. You have to commit to the process. Keep your generalizations strictly rooted in the evidence, and always remember the mechanical structure of the conversation. Keep evaluating, keep showing you're working out loud, and you will be well on your way to mastering this syllabus. If you found this masterclass valuable, you need to hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE and A levels at @ACE_the Exam_IGCSE. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our future exam hacks, and drop a comment below right now with your target grade. Put it out there, commit to it, and let's get to work. I'll see you in the next explainer.